Joining me now, 104.5 The Team, 104.5theteam.com, is Steve Carney, who knows everything about the Tampa Bay Rays for 620 WDAE in Tampa. Steve, how are you?
I'm great, Brady. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you for being on. We've been talking about Garrett Whitley for the last 2 months and change here as we prepared for the MLB draft. He goes number 13 overall. He goes to the Rays, and yesterday he makes it official. He forgoes his future career at Wake Forest to sign with Tampa for nearly $3 million. You were at the Trop yesterday. You met Garrett Whitley. What were your first impressions?
Well, my first impression of Garrett Whitley is I was really impressed with he doesn't seem like he's an 18-year-old kid. I've seen a lot of high school players that the Rays have drafted over the years, and he is not the prototypical high school kid. You know, high school kids usually kind of skinny and short and doesn't have a lot of power. And he hit BP yesterday with the team and looked like one of the players out there. He's a lot bigger than I thought he would be, and had a lot more power than I thought he would have in the cage on the field. And I was just really impressed. Just a smart kid, really good family. His whole family was down here with him. Came down from Niskayuna to watch him sign his contract, and seems really excited to get into the 95-degree heat and the oppressive humidity of Charlotte County, because he's going to go down to the Gulf Coast League. And according to the director of scouting, R.J. Harrison, it's probably going to be about a week or so, but hopefully they'll have him in a game pretty soon.
We have video of Garrett Whitley's first professional swings on 104.5theteam.com. You said you noticed a lot of power. He's been lauded for that speed and power combo, but also his bat speed. Were you able to tell anything about his bat speed and just how quick his hands were?
Well, they certainly were quick, and he was getting pointers from Evan Longoria. Longoria was giving him grief because he only uses a 33-inch long bat, and so that was kind of a funny little aside while they were waiting to take swings. And so for his last round of BP, he actually grabbed one of Longoria's bats and brought Longoria's bat in there to try it out. Because Longoria used a little longer bat. It's not that much longer. It's only 33.5 inches. But, you know, every single millimeter counts when it comes to baseball, and especially making contact. Said it was just the most amazing occurrence of his life. And he thought, he'd been waiting his entire life to do this, and now he's been able to do it.
So Whitley is going to go to the Gulf Coast League Rays, and kind of just explain what the role of the Gulf Coast League is. This is a league that doesn't charge attendance or doesn't charge admission, doesn't have concession stands. This is a league not predicated on winning. It's predicated solely on player development, right?
Yeah, they are completely about player development. It is a short season league, so it's just gotten underway, and it is for a lot of the guys that are just getting started out. Most 18-year-olds end up going to something like the Gulf Coast League. If they're domestic, if they're foreign, they'll go to some place like the Venezuelan Summer League or the Dominican Summer League, and it's the first step. You go to something like the Gulf Coast League or the Rookie League for your first professional year, and you work your way up. The next thing would be short season A-ball, which would end up being something like the Hudson Valley Renegades, which is the Rays affiliate in the New York Penn League, and then you get into full season with A-ball, and then AA, AAA, and then finally you get to the majors. So you're looking at somewhere in the vicinity of a 4 to 5 year window before you will see probably a guy like Garrett Whitley in the majors.
Something that is unique to the Northeast and really in New York versus down south is the time that high school ends. Garrett Whitley just walked across the stage last week, whereas guys that are from southern schools have been out for a month or more. Is Garrett Whitley behind the 8 ball because of when he was graduated high school? Because he could not sign until he did.
Yeah, you're absolutely right that he could not graduate. And being a Northeasterner myself, I understand how everything works up there. In fact, my dad still lives in Saratoga, and he's probably listening, so shout out to the pops. Yeah. But I don't think he's that far behind the 8 ball. And really, R.J. Harrison, the Rays scouting director, said he doesn't feel like he is at all, just because he's got the talent, the raw natural talent, that it won't let him be behind the 8 ball. He's going to be just as caught up as every other 18-year-old that the Rays drafted, even if they're from Florida or from Hawaii. They've got a couple of guys that they drafted from the island state. Anybody from the South, he's going to match up just fine with all of them.
So you know the area here well in upstate New York. We have the Tri-City Valley Cats around the corner from our from our studio. That is the Houston Astros New York Penn League affiliate. The Renegades are only an hour and 15 minutes away or so. They play in the New York Penn League as well. Is there any chance that at the end of this season we could see Garrett Whitley in a Hudson Valley uniform? Or is that something maybe we're looking towards next year after maybe in a time of extended spring training or something?
Yeah, I think you're more likely to see the latter than the former, but it would not surprise me that if he really goes on a tear, and especially because he's going to get into a game here in the next week, if he gets 25 or 30 games in and he's just mashing the baseball down in Port Charlotte in the Gulf Coast League, I don't see why not. I mean, you want to get this guy going and keep his confidence as high as it is, and there's nothing that is more confidence boosting for a player than giving him a promotion, especially a promotion that quickly. So it wouldn't surprise me to see him in the New York Penn League, but the way that the Rays operate, they're very, very methodical. R.J. Harrison and his crew, very methodical on making sure that the guys are ready for that next level before giving them the promotion.
Let's talk money now. He signs for the full slot value the number 13 pick in the draft can get, $2,962,100, nearly $3 million for Garrett Whitley, the Niskayuna high school standout. When we heard rumors of Whitley going number 1 to the Diamondbacks possibly a couple weeks before the draft, I had heard a lot of stuff about, well, the Diamondbacks have an $8 million slot at that number 1 pick. Maybe they can lowball Whitley and save that money for some other people. The Rays certainly didn't view him as a guy that they could lowball and take advantage of a little bit. They must have a lot of respect for Whitley and his game if they're going to give him that full slot money, right?
Well, that, and they wanted to make sure that they were going to get him away from Wake Forest. His commitment, and talking to him on draft night, he seemed like he was ready to make the jump into the professional ranks rather than go to Wake Forest. But that commitment to an ACC team and a team that plays in the same conference as this year's national champion in Virginia, that's a really tough thing to overcome, especially if you're going to try and lowball a kid at number 1. I've seen it way too often that guys, that teams try and think, we'll draft this guy higher, and that way our signing bonus will be smaller and we can spend that money on other places. That's not how the Rays normally operate, and they've shown it with Whitley. They respected him that much, and they said, look, we know that you want to go to college, and now with this signing bonus, you'll eventually be able to go to college and get that degree on your own.
Steve Carney, 620 WDAE in Tampa, at Steve Carney on Twitter, breaking down Garrett Whitley, who was in Tampa yesterday, taking swings at Tropicana Field, signed his first pro contract with the Rays. And Steve, Rocco Baldelli was a guy you quoted in a piece you wrote for your station's website this morning, and he was talking about Whitley. This is another guy, Rocco Baldelli, who the Rays drafted out of high school, who is from the Northeast. He's from Rhode Island. The Rays have a history of drafting high school outfielders, whether it be Josh Hamilton, whether it be Delman Young. They were certainly not scared off by a prep bat, were they? And a Northeast prep bat to boot.
No, they certainly weren't. And talking to Rocco, because both of them are outfielders drafted in the first round by the Rays out of Northeastern high schools, I wanted to see what the most what's going to shock Whitley the most about going into the professional ranks straight out of high school. And Rocco told me that it's mostly about playing every day. It's a shock to the system. You know this, being up there. High school baseball players, they play once, twice a week at the most in the Northeast, and the window is very small for when they play in high school. So it's going to be a shock to his system. He's going to play 6-7 days a week for at least the next month or two, and he has to get his body prepared for that, and especially in Charlotte County, down in South Florida, where it's going to be 95 degrees up press feet, and you play outside. It's not like at Tropicana Field where it's 72 degrees and air conditioned all the time. They play outside, and it's a lot of fun, but it's wicked hot out.
Garrett Whitley about to start the grind with the Rays, heading out to the Gulf Coast League Rays, the lowest level on the rung as he works his way towards professional baseball. Steve Carney, you guys down there in Tampa, not only do you have Garrett Whitley to root for, you also have Jamie Schultz, who's another Capital Region product, who's right now tearing it up for your Montgomery Biscuits AA affiliate. So the Capital Region about to be making a strong presence in Tampa. Steve, thank you for being with us, and you enjoy the ride, and we'll all be watching the Rays back here as well.
We will, Brady. Thanks a lot, man.